carving a career in photojournalism. How does one prepare a portfolio of a lifetime of images? Through this MOOC on photojournalism, we hope that you have learnt a lot about photography and photojournalism, and now you're ready to think about your style and your entry into the field of photojournalism. Here you see a caricature made of a photojournalist, and take a moment and see if you can guess who the photojournalist is. I'll give you a clue. You know him. You know him by now. The answer is Mr. Desikan Krishnan. He has been a photojournalist for more than 40 years, having worked with the Hindu as well in Chennai in India, and he has been a photo editor and a photographer and a photojournalist. This caricature made of him by Mr. Keshav, the cartoonist of the Hindu, shows the life of a photojournalist with all the contraptions, all the cameras, all the baggage that a photojournalist carries so that she or he can successfully get the photograph and bring it back to the news organization. Today, we are going to see the career of a photojournalist, what it is to have a career in photojournalism. You will learn through the various images of Mr. Desikan Krishnan. As you can see here, the musician D.K. Patamal. You can see here another image that he has taken of the caves and him covering a sports person and him covering a very, very famous and popular festival, the Pushkar festival in Rajasthan. So let's find out from Mr. Desikan Krishnan about his entry and the start of his career in photojournalism. So as a photojournalist, you can have a long career if you decide to enter into this field. Today we are going to share an example of a career in photojournalism spanning over 40 years. And we'll start with Mr. Desikan Krishnan telling us where it all began in 1978.
It all began with my interview. Normally, when you go for an interview, you take a few pictures to show to the person who is interviewing you, to let him know your capabilities. So I had taken a bunch of pictures which included a few cricket pictures. So the editor, Mr. G. Kasturi, who himself interviewed me for the job, picked up this picture, threw it across the table and asked me, at what time did you shoot this picture? I didn't know, frankly, because I had taken this picture years back. So I just told him probably 12 o'clock. He smiled and then said, no, you're wrong. Mr. Kasturi was one who knew photography, he knew lighting. And then he said, look at the shadows, they are long. You must have taken them sometime at 4 p.m. That is when Chepak cast his shadow on her left. I had nothing to say to it. I just nodded and I thought I lost the job. But to my surprise, I got a call to join them, and that is where all of it began.
Nagaland, 1984.
This was one unforgettable trip. I'd been to Calcutta to cover a Davis Cup match, and from there I went to Nagaland. I'd informed my editor, got his permission, and went to Nagaland. Nagaland those days was an unknown territory. Nobody knew about it. We had just heard some stories about Nagas and Nagaland. So I wanted to go there to really find out what the life of the people was all about. I spent around 30 days over there in Nagaland. I visited, they had 9 districts then, I have visited 9 visited around 7 of the 9 districts, and went around documenting the life of the people over there, which was used in a very big way in the Hindu's Frontline magazine, which was known for its photographs.
The Riangs, Tripura, 1986.
The Ruyangs was another very, very interesting tribe that I had covered. In fact, to reach their village, we had to cross a river and we had to report to the police outpost before we could go there, because it was Maoists were supposed to be living there. And we were asked to come back before a certain time, because the policemen over there said, if you don't come back, let's say by 4 p.m., we would come looking for you. We were delayed. As you know, when you get involved in photography, you don't see your watch. So by the time we came back, it was past 5 p.m., past the deadline they had given us, and the policemen were just about getting into another boat to come in search of us.
The Bonda tribe, Koraput, Odisha, 1984.
I saw a small photograph in a Tamil magazine of the Bonda girl. So the next time I was scheduled to visit Orissa, it was for a hockey tournament. I told my correspondent over there, requested him to make arrangements for me to go to the Bonda village once the tournament was over. We had to meet several people to get permission. In fact, we met the Chief Minister of Orissa, as it was known then, the Tribal Welfare Minister. All of them asked us not to go because they were a very dangerous tribe. But as a photograph of them has been taken and also published, I thought, well, I should also do it. So we went there, and there are a lot of preparations to be done before you visit any tribe or you want to photograph anybody. We spent a lot of time shopping, things to be given to them as gifts, to interact with them, because any outsider going there with a camera, they would sort of not cooperate. So we bought a lot of chocolate for the kids, rubber balls, cricket bats, mirrors for the ladies, bangles, a lot of other food stuff to be given to them. So initially, whenever you visit a tribe or you want to photograph a series of people, you just can't take your camera out and start to shoot. They would have to trust you. For that, you got to spend time. You got to spend time with them. So that's what we did. Myself and my correspondent would come along with me. We spent a lot of time talking to them. After that, there was no hesitation. They posed for us and they took us to their homes, and they even fed us. I lived there for about 2 days or 3 days, I don't remember, around 3 days, and they subsisted on a diet of roots and herbs, mainly roots and herbs. We ate that and we stayed with them and documented their life.